If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great night. And of course, thank you so much for joining us for another live stream episode of the show. I really appreciate it. I had originally planned to bring Carrie back on this week for a Q&A show, but poor Carrie is really catching it. Unfortunately, a family member passed away. So now she had to travel out of state to tend to that, to deal with that, unfortunately. Of course, she's going to be in our prayers. We want nothing but the best for her. But when I found out that she wasn't going to be able to record the show this week, and understandably so, I reached out to a good man I know named Brian Terrell with Dirt Cryptids. He's been on the show before on episodes 460 and 492. I asked him about coming on to do a live stream tonight, and luckily he agreed. So without any further ado, let's bring him in here now. Brian, thanks so much for coming back. We really appreciate you doing this.
Well, I always enjoy coming and hanging out with you for a little while.
Well, it's fun having you. It always is. Brian, for anyone who missed those two shows, episodes 460 and 492, please tell them about yourself and also tell them about Dirt Cryptids.
Well, for a long time, I had no idea what I'd seen. I just kind of called it the wolf dog. And it wasn't until somewhere around 2016, 2017, I kept hearing, people talking about this Dogman thing on podcasts. And I really didn't know, what they were talking about. I thought they were talking about some kind of centaur type creature, was half man, half dog or something. But when I finally got to see a picture of it, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized, that I'd seen one of those years ago, 10 years prior. And then when I really started doing my research and digging into them, I realized I had seen two of them, but one was very much different than the other. But so I started Dirt Cryptid Investigations originally just for the people of Northwest Oklahoma who had cryptid encounters, Bigfoot, Dogman, anything else that they happened to have seen. I started out just for them, but it quickly spread. And next thing you know, I was talking to people from all over the state. And eventually I ended up working parts of southern Kansas from time to time as well. We do a lot, me and my team. I've got several guys that go out with me, Jeff Hatfield, Coleman Atchley, Eric Schrader, and occasionally we have Scotty Rodemaker from Kansas with us too. But we're always, keeping our ear to the ground and looking for case files. And we try to go out and do field work, try to find evidence of these creatures. But we also interview eyewitnesses and talk to them. And probably a lot like you, Vic, I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to people who have had the bejeebers scared out of them, But the one thing that I think that I do that's a little bit different from everybody else is I actually document all of these case files that I get a chance to. And I write them all down and I put them on a public, I wouldn't call it a website. It's actually an app that I give people the link to for free. Everybody out there has access to all of my case files. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not really my case files. They belong to the people. So throw them out there. They're there for people that need them. And every couple of months, I sit down and add more case files to them as they come in. And it seems like here in Oklahoma, they just keep coming in. You just kind of got to know where to look. I've started learning how to search social media and find people that have had these encounters, and I'm not shy. I hit them up on Facebook Messenger, and I reach out to them. Sometimes people just call me directly because they know they'll start, Googling Oklahoma, werewolf or something, and I guess I pop up somehow. But and I get a lot of case files from you, Vic. So I appreciate that because your work has really aided my work. You know, that's an understatement. A lot of case files I have you listed as the investigator. So, but that's kind of me in a nutshell. That's kind of what I do. I'm just a simple guy, trying to find some answers. I don't have all the answers, but I guess nobody really does.
You're right. None of us do. And of course, I'm glad to send eyewitnesses your way. You're one of the good ones.
You know? Yeah, I appreciate it. You have sent a few to me.
I'm glad to do it. I really am. Brian, a lot of people who have never been to Oklahoma don't know about the unique topography your state has. Please expand on that for us.
Oh yeah, Oklahoma has got to be one of the weirdest states in the union. Um, we've got deserts, we've got mesas, we've got mountains. Not big mountains, but we've got rivers, swamps, bayous. We've got farmland like you would not believe, which I believe is a great contributor to our population. It's just you go from one corner of the state to the other, and the extremes of the type of mountainous terrain and stuff that we have is just it's insane. And then when you throw our panhandle in, no man's land, then you got another completely different type of topography there too. It's diverse. We've even got salt flats here and deserts. Um, it's uh, it's really strange when you really sit down and look at it. We've got nice, clear, beautiful creeks and rivers over in parts of eastern Oklahoma and over in western Oklahoma. We got muddy rivers, and I mean, it's like everything is different whenever you travel around. It's like very few, even the animals. Like I'll get down to southwestern Oklahoma, and I'll hear birds that I'm like, I don't know what bird that is. That's really weird. So it's very different, very unique and diverse. So very very strange, really.
It's not lost on a lot of people who are in the cryptid community that these guys and Sasquatch, they like to travel in creeks because the creeks will hide their presence. Creeks have cut into the ground and they're lower than the surrounding earth normally, so even in broad daylight, they can travel those creeks and not be seen. Well, Oklahoma offers that on steroids. A lot of people, when they first travel to your state, they look across an expanse and they think it's just flat ground. Nothing but flat ground out there. But if you go out there and take a closer look, what are they going to find?
Oh man, all those rivers. We've got a ton of rivers, and we've got a ton of lakes. Um, I read somewhere a long time ago that Oklahoma has more miles of shoreline than Florida does. That's just something that, one of those things that everybody in Oklahoma kind of knows that they teach you when you're a kid in school growing up. We've got a ton of water and it flows and it's all over. I live in Garfield County, and I think it may actually be the only county that doesn't have a major river flowing through it. I mean, we've got a lot of creeks and stuff, but we don't have any major rivers. But yeah, it's literally everywhere, and it all flows from the northwestern part, and it just kind of cuts down at a 45-degree angle a lot of times, and it all kind of ends up dumping into the Mississippi. We got the Red River, the North Canadian River, South Canadian River, Cimarron River, the Arkansas River. I mean, there's so many of them. I don't even know, how many rivers there are. There's just a ton of them. And every single river, of course, is completely surrounded by dense vegetation, old forest growth. There's a ton of cover for them. And when you get up into northwestern Oklahoma, we've got all the farmlands, and everybody kind of pictures that as being, I think they used to call it the Great American Desert, but it ain't that Great American Desert anymore. It's very heavily wooded, and there's a lot of cover for them. But on top of having cover, they also have access to the large deer population here, which is a great food source. And of course, now we've got these hogs in the last 15, 20 years, which is, I guess, an unlimited supply of bacon. So you can't argue with that.
No, you can't. All that cover, the food supply, all the moving water. What more could a dogman want, unfortunately?
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Plus the hogs, of course, not good at all. All right, Brian, from what I understand, you've got some case files that you're willing to share with us tonight. Please do that now.
Well, I once I got in here and started looking at, some of my case files after you asked me, there's a lot. And, I really started sitting down and looking at them after we talked. And so I actually did punch some numbers. I've got, uh, what is it? I've got like 392 case files in the Red Dirt Cryptid database there. 240 of those, of course, are Sasquatch. The lion's share is Sasquatch. But 78 of those is Dogman. That's 20% of the case files that I have are Dogman. And 74 of them are others, like unknown, like it couldn't be identified whether it was a Sasquatch or Dogman. So could have been either or. And so that's 19% of them right there. So the number of Dogman reports could go up dramatically from 20%. The weird thing that I got to notice, and I could see at first glance, was that almost all of the 78 Dogman encounters, except for two, were Class A sightings. I think that's kind of unusual. I guess you don't get a whole lot of Class B Dogman sightings. And I think the reason is because those sightings get reported as Sasquatch. You see something big and hairy moving through the woods. I think those Class Bs are, it kind of makes you wonder how many of those Class B Sasquatch reports are actually Dogman reports. So it's kind of some food for thought. The first one that I got here is from the fall of 2010. And I actually went out and did an interview with this young man. I call him a young man. He was, I think, 16 years old in 2010. He wished to remain anonymous. And of course, we always, respect that. But, he works in the family business, and his dad is a respected businessman in the community. So he obviously had concerns like a lot of people do. But when he was 16 years old, he was sitting in his bedroom, and it was a nice day, and he had his window open, and he lived in his bedroom was one of those bedrooms that's up above the the garage. And he was up there, and he was just kind of sitting there, and something told him that something was wrong. It was nighttime, and so he sat up, and he was kind of looking around, and he immediately looked out the window, and the way he kind of described it to me is that he knew that something was out there before he even saw it. And he said he really couldn't explain how he knew it, but he just knew it. And sure enough, pretty soon, this creature came out and into the light and started walking up his driveway. Now, he lives out in the country, and it was a pretty nice looking house, and the driveway was there, and it was kind of a long driveway. Well, this thing comes into the light from the house, and it's sniffing around, and it's acting like it's looking for something. And basically what he's seeing is this giant black wolf walking around on all fours. And his pickup truck had had a half-ton Dodge pickup truck, and it was not parked on the driveway, but it was parked on some gravel just off the driveway. And he said he was just like mesmerized watching the thing, and it walked up and it started sniffing his truck, like sniffing the tires like a dog would. You know how dogs will do that kind of stuff. And basically, he said that it was really, really black and he couldn't see a whole lot once it got closer to the house. But he said that all of a sudden, something alerted this dog and it stood up on its hind legs, and he knew that this thing was big. Before he could tell that it was, he said that the back of this thing was even with the edge of the bed of his pickup truck, which depending on the make and model or whatever, that's probably coming up to your belly button at least, if you're a 6 foot tall guy. But he said it was a half-ton pickup truck. I can't remember off the top of my head whether he said it was four-wheel drive or not. But you're talking just a few inches. Whatever this thing was pretty substantially big. He said when it stood up, its head was a lot taller than the cab of the truck. And of course, this kind of freaked him out. But he said at that point, he said it kind of looked around back and forth, and then it took off and it ran off. He never saw it again. And I think he said something about it to his parents, but he wasn't really sure what he said. Like a lot of people, they see this and they don't really know, what was that I saw? Like I didn't know what it was that I saw whenever I first saw it. I didn't know it had a name. I didn't know there was a breeding population of these things. So I'm sure it was very traumatic for him. And to this day, he's still, real skittish about talking about it with the wrong people around, because he's worried that it's going to affect his livelihood, like a lot of people. So that happened in the fall of 2010, and that was in northeastern Oklahoma. And I went out and interviewed this guy. I think it was like about a year ago now. So, and there is a YouTube video where we actually interview the guy, but he's always off camera. So, and the guy was very sincere, very honest. You know, um, the guy was just, I don't know, he just felt like it was his duty to let other people know, what he'd seen. Because, I think it bugged him enough that he thought that people needed to be warned, if you know what I mean. My next one that I plucked out happened in 2013 in north central Oklahoma. This lady reached out to me. She wanted to be anonymous too. She's a Native American woman, and she was very close. Very close to the intersection of Highway 412 and I-35, which is west of Enid, north of Perry, east of Enid, north of Perry, kind of north of Stillwater area. But she was driving home at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she said that she saw this thing coming at her car as she was driving down 412 highway. And she said she saw it coming, and she said she tried to veer out of the way or something, but she didn't have time. And believe it or not, this thing rammed her car, and it hit she was driving a four-door, and it hit the door right behind her door, put a big dent in it. I asked her if she had pictures of it, and she said she did on her old phone, but her old phone took a, you know what they do, and she said she didn't have that photo anymore. But the thing actually, part of it actually went underneath her rear driver's side tire. And she said that she went up and over the thing. Of course, she was at highway speeds, and she said that she almost lost control of her vehicle. and it scared her. She thought she was going to wreck, and she said she was all over the road, and she's thinking this thing is going to get her, you know. And but then at the very last minute, she got the car under control, and then she just kept going. And of course, being Native American, she was obviously disturbed. She kind of knew what these things were. She went and talked to some people about it, but she kind of got the opinion that it was some type of bad spirit that was, you know, wanting to punish her in some way. And so she didn't talk about it for a long time until she started learning too about, this is some type of cryptid that's out there. And this woman was like really traumatized by this. She went home. She she at first she didn't think it was a flesh and blood creature. She was under the impression that it was some kind of spiritual or paranormal, demon sent to punish her for. It's kind of funny. She was coming home from the casino, and she thought that she was being punished for going to the casino, which is kind of funny in its own way. But I tell you what wasn't funny was listening to her tell the story. I mean, this woman was literally, you know, terrified. And and when she told the story, she was just reliving it. And it was just, to me, it was just captivating. I mean, I would have loved to have had an audio recorder running while she was telling the story. I mean, she was literally about on the edge of her seat, and she was practically in tears. And this had happened 10 years prior, and it was still really impactful and, and creating all this emotion in her, and I mean, I really kind of felt bad for the lady, and I tried to talk to her like we always do. I mean, you know, sadly, there ain't nobody that you can reach out to when you see one of these creatures. You can't call your priest. You can't talk to your buddies about it. You're probably gonna, sometimes even talking to your spouse about it is a terrible idea. The only people that you can really confide in is people that you find out have actually had the same encounter. You know, so but anyway, my heart kind of goes out to that lady. I'll never forget her and her story. But that was to me, that was just. I've got so many questions with this report. Like, why did it hit her car? What was it trying to do? What was the purpose? Did it try to get run over? I mean, I have no idea. And there's literally nothing out there either in that one particular location. There's no rivers or anything out there. There's a little airport right there, but now there's a casino right there at the intersection of 412 and I-35. But back then, there wasn't anything there, So I don't really know what was going on there. That report leaves you with, more questions than you had before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how it normally goes.
Yeah. It's like every case file opens up five more questions. Um, let's see. My next one is case file 352. Let me see. I set these things aside. Oh gosh, yes. This was a very interesting one. I had this young man reach out to me, and at the time he reached out to me, I think he was 17 years old. And all I'll say is that he lives in southwestern Oklahoma, and he helps his grandparents run a cattle ranch. And they've had a series of very peculiar events, including, cattle mutilations and stuff, of which he sent me pictures of. And it's very strange, too, because it was like some of these calves that were killed, it's like they weren't even eaten upon. It was almost like they were just killed for sport or something, um, which is odd behavior to begin with. But he had two uh, visual encounters that were pretty scary. Pretty scary. The first encounter that he had was he rode a four-wheeler from the farmhouse, and he did this during the daytime. Got up early in the morning, and he said one winter it was really really cold, and this was in 2022, so it wasn't even that long ago. It was November 2022. He rode his four-wheeler out to go check and make sure that the water trough. They have one of those big 12-foot water troughs with the solar pump, and basically he had to go make sure that everything was still working and that the cows could get water. And so he goes over there and he goes through a cattle guard and he opens up the gate and he goes in and rides over there, and sure enough the pump is actually working. He said they'd been having trouble with the pump, and he noticed whenever he went through, there was a, a corral of sorts right there by the gate where he went in. And he noticed what he thought was a black cow laying down with its back facing him on the outside of the corral on the other side of it. But he didn't think much of it. It just looked like a black cow. And so he just kind of, and he was in a hurry. He's 17, 16 years old at the time, and he had better things to do than to fool around. So he went over there and checked it, and he came back, and when he came back, he shut the gate behind him, and he noticed that cow was gone. And so he pulled out of the cattle guard and turned to his right, and he was going to go that way, but when he turned out on the road, that's when he saw it. The thing had apparently changed positions. It was now in the middle of the road, and it was standing in the middle of the road, and it was facing him, like at a 3/4 angle. And he said he stopped, and he was very shocked. He didn't know what he was looking at. He said the thing was very large. But he said him and this thing just kind of had like a standoff, staring at each other. And he said he's really not sure how long it went on, but eventually the thing kind of did like a half lunge at him, like it was trying to instigate something. And he said when that happened, it like snapped him out of it, and he was like, I got to get the hell out of here. So he floored it and kind of spun the thing around, and he took off going the other way and went the long way around. But he said that he thought the thing was going to get him, but it never got him. So, and I guess several months later, maybe a year later, I'd have to check the file. He said that he was pulling out of the gate again, same place, and he looked up on the hill, and he said he saw the thing standing up there. And he looked at it, and they made eye contact, and then all of a sudden, it just took off like a rocket. Okay. And it starts coming down this hill, and it's charging him. And he's freaked out, and he's like, oh crap, So he takes off, and he's just gunning it. And apparently he'd been having some problems with the brakes on his four-wheeler. And but he was going so fast, an accelerated rate because of his adrenaline and everything, that he took a curve too fast, and without his brakes, he wasn't able to slow down. He actually ended up wrecking like I say, wrecking. He went off into the ditch and got stuck, right? And he thought to himself, he's like, this is it. This is it. This thing's going to kill me. And he said whenever he ran off into the ditch, he got up and he looked over there to see what it was doing, see if it was, about to pounce on him or whatever. He said the thing just stopped, looked confused, looked left and right, and ended up just kind of casually walking off like, this isn't any fun anymore, you know? So he he was he was very convincing, very convincing. Nice young man. I think, I follow him we're friends on Facebook, and he's fixing to go to college, I think, and he shows cattle. Seems like a very nice, well-rounded young man, and he seemed like he had nothing but sincerity in him. And he also mentioned that he had, from time to time, Sasquatch on his property out there too, but he didn't have any fear of them. It's like they were no big deal. So, but again, when you sit down and you listen to the story, right, and you hear him say it, you're like, well, why didn't that dog man attack him? Why did it had him? You know, why did it stop? Why didn't it catch him the first time? You know, what was it doing in the corral? Was it in there sleeping? You know, I again, I, I do not, but it's like most of your stories, Vic. I mean, they usually end up with, no harm coming to the eyewitness, you know, with every opportunity to do it, to catch them. So I don't know. This stuff is so fascinating. That was southwestern Oklahoma, 2022. So, so
Thank goodness that's a pattern instead of them following through.
we wouldn't have any case files then, would we?
No, he wouldn't.
Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? And these are, keep in mind something that I think people need to realize. These are just the case files that people have come forward on. I mean, there's got to be a lot more that people just aren't talking about. I mean, to me, it's just really, really fascinating. We really have no idea what the population is, or anything, because it's such it's still to this day, even though we've come a long way, it's still a taboo subject. So, especially in Oklahoma, we're very conservative, I guess you'd say. Now, you and I have talked before about, how there's no real paranormal side of most of these case files. How, there's um, no indication really that these dogman creatures are supernatural, paranormal, or whatever. Um, I actually forgot about this case file until I started going through them. And I took this one back in August of 2024. So it's been since the last time I sat down and talked to you. But I had a lady reach out to me, and this situation actually happened in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is suburban. Edmond is a really big town just on the north side of Oklahoma City. It's actually, I guess you could say, it's a suburb of Oklahoma City, but Edmond is its own town in its own right. But there were two eyewitnesses back in 2009 that saw a dog man, a werewolf type creature, emerge from a flash of green light. And this was at Coltrane and Simpson. Yeah, and that was in the summer of 2009. Two people saw it. They were married at the time, but she said that they were actually divorced now. But she said that this thing was like 20 to 30 feet away from them. And it just, flash of light, green, the thing was standing there. She said she didn't see it step out of a portal or anything. She just said that there was a flash of light. They turned and looked, and the thing was standing right there where the light was. Is that a portal? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, there was two people that actually saw this, and they may not like each other anymore, but they both back each other up on what they saw that night, which I think is kind of funny. A weird note about this is they said that this werewolf was standing upright, but they said that it had blue heeler colored fur, that gray color. Uh, I I don't know. Do you get a whole lot of reports of them with blue heeler type fur?
No, I can't think of any that have come in.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder I mean, is this a typical dog man? They said it had spiky hair around the back of its neck and red eyes, which that kind of stuff is fairly common to get reported. But I just think it's very very odd that we would get something like that. I mean, I don't know, but to the best of my knowledge, this report right here, and it's case file 378, werewolf in Edmond, Oklahoma. That is the closest thing that I've ever had for a case file where something could have involved a portal. So I don't know. Again, here we go. More questions. More questions.
That's how it normally goes. Just when you think you know enough about dogmen to have a clue where the guardrails are, another report comes in that just blows you right over the guardrail that you're closest to.
Yes, give me more guardrail because it's getting out of control. Um, I do have another report from Edmond, Oklahoma. This one actually happened in January of 2024. This wasn't very long ago, but this one didn't involve any portals or anything, but it is fairly close to the same area. And this one's pretty weird too in its own right. I'll just read the eyewitness report to you because it was very, very brief. This woman reached out to me on Messenger, wanted to remain anonymous, which is kind of funny. Most people that have dogman encounters, it seems like, they want to remain anonymous. Um, I would say to a higher percentage than Sasquatch or Bigfoot believers, but I think it has something to do with the fact that Bigfoot is becoming more acceptable in polite society, I guess. But I'll just read this out to you here. The young woman who was a bakery worker, 22 years old in Edmond, Oklahoma, had a strange encounter on the 11th of January, 2024, at 3 o'clock in the morning. She was driving to work, bakery worker, makes sense. She saw a strange looking dog on top of the water tower. It was near Ayers and Blackwelder, and there is a tall, possibly 4-story high water tower. She said at first it was on 4 legs, and then it stood up, and she noticed it had a canine head. She said there's a stop sign right there at the location. She described the creature as being roughly 6 foot tall. It had a really long snout, and it looked shaggy in nature, but slender. The eyewitness drove away but lost sight of the creature. She looked back several times. Again, this is one of those same stories that we get a lot. Um, she didn't know what she saw. She described this thing as a werewolf, you know, but she felt like it was her duty, like somebody needed to know, you know, which is I think it's pretty common. I think a lot of people feel a need to tell somebody what they saw, but then after they do that, then they just want to fade away and go back to their normal life. I don't know. But what on earth would it have been doing on top of a small water tower? I mean, was it, I don't know, keeping an eye on everything or something? Or even better, how did it get up there? You know, I don't know. So, um, another one that came in recently, this one actually happened on July 29th of 2023. And this one actually came to me through a fellow Bigfoot researcher. His name is Brian Hewlin. He's with the Southern Bigfoot Alliance. He was in contact with a young woman who had encountered a possible white dog man right off the side of the road on I-40, and it was actually really close to the Arkansas line, and she was actually on her way to Arkansas. And I'll just this very short report, because it was a roadside encounter, of course. But this woman wanted to remain anonymous. The anonymous young woman who was driving down I-40 extremely close to the Arkansas state line on July 29th, 2023, had a roadside encounter with a creature whose description could possibly meet a white dog man. This encounter happened in broad daylight. Multiple cars appeared to her as having seen it. She said the creature appeared to be eating something on the ground off the side of the highway, possibly roadkill. The eyewitness speculated that it was roadkill, but didn't see it for sure to confirm it. It was on all fours, and it looked up from its meal and looked at the eyewitness. The eyewitness said that it was possibly 20 to 30 yards away. She gave the following description: that it had white fur all over, and it was extremely large, and she said its head looked like a polar bear. Now, that struck me as odd. We don't have we have very few bears in Oklahoma. We do have small black bears, but our black bears are about the size of a large dog. So I can't help but wonder if it was, a canine look, but because of the whiteness of the thing's fur, that she interpreted it as a polar bear. I don't, kind of hard to say. Anyway, she said that it looked like a polar bear's head, except it had a very thick coat of hair around the back half of its neck. She said that the back half of the creature looked like a dog with the shape of its legs. The eyewitness reached out to my friend Brian, who relayed the report to us. I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought it was worth documenting because we don't get a whole lot of white dogman reports, and I am assuming that that's what we're probably looking at here. But do you get very many white dogman reports at all?
Not many, but they do come in.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I didn't get to question the lady directly, but the guy that relayed all the information to me, of course, he's a Bigfoot investigator, so he knew what kind of questions to ask. So I feel pretty, and he was very confident in this young, in her sincerity. So it's kind of funny. She said she didn't know what she'd seen, and she just knew that her friend um, had dealt with Bigfoot, so she felt like she needed to reach out to him. The funny part about this report is if that young woman would not have been friends with Brian Hewlin, we probably never would have heard about this. I mean, it probably never would have saw the light of day. But now it's documented where other people can get their hands on it. So the next one I got is case file 279. This one happened in July of 2022. Now, this one actually may have happened in Texas, but it did happen at Lake Texoma. It happened at Mill Creek, which is actually on the south side of Texoma. And for those of you that don't know, Lake Texoma is part of the border between Oklahoma and Texas. And this lady that reached out to me, she said that there was three people in the car, but only two of them saw it. It was her and her nephew. They both saw the thing. And this Mill Creek area is kind of like one of those typical lake communities where they have a boat ramp, and there's trailer houses, lake houses out there, and I think there's a restaurant out there and stuff. And this thing was basically lurking around this little lake type community at night, and her and her nephew both saw the thing. And then when they went back the next day and they were looking at it in the daylight, they realized that even though the thing looked huge, it was actually standing in the bar ditch, which made it actually shorter than it was in real life. So it was actually taller than they realized when they were actually looking at it, which I thought was kind of weird. But she gave a really decent description, and I just think that the whole thing was very interesting. There's not a whole lot of food sources out there other than the lake. I mean, I did consider that, and there is a restaurant there, and I thought crossed my mind that maybe this creature was dumpster diving in the area at night, just kind of passing through, hitting a few dumpsters, or maybe even trash cans. It did happen in July, so that's prime time for lake activity. So hard to say, but that one may be in Texas, but we'll still claim it, right? Oh, let's see here. Oh, this one's so funny. So this is case file 321, and this one here was actually came up because I happened to run into a guy, and so I was out at one of my research areas in northwestern Oklahoma. And I was out there by myself, which I'm probably not supposed to do. And I was at this one area, and I was looking for prints in the marshes and stuff. And this guy pulls up in a pickup truck and starts getting out some fishing poles and stuff. So I kind of walked over there, and I was kind of visiting with him, because that's usually where you get your best lead is from the local boys. And I started out with regular pleasantries and stuff, and eventually, I slipped in the question. It's so have you ever heard of anything weird or seen anything weird out here? You know, and he's like, well, what do you mean? I go, I don't know, like Bigfoot or anything like that. And he goes, nope. And I said, I've never seen a Bigfoot out here, but I have seen a chupacabra. And I was like, what? Because I don't have anything that I would consider to be a chupacabra report in Oklahoma. So I was just, at first, I was just like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. And what?
Now I was just laughing.
I know, right? I know, but so I was like, I mean, I was giddy, and I was like, well, tell me about it. What happened? I was like, well, where did you see this? He goes, oh, right on the road over here. And I mean, he was literally talking like 2.5 miles down the road. And apparently, according to him, he was riding his pickup truck, and him and his daughter were going to go fishing, and probably at the same place. And apparently, he lived right down there. But he said that this chupacabra crossed the road in front of him and scared his daughter. And I guess his daughter was like 6 years old or something. I'd have to read the case file. He was telling me all about it. But he said that and I asked him to describe it, and try to do, get down to some details and stuff. And it's very hard to try to get people to accurately describe stuff sometimes, because as an investigator, you don't want to plant ideas in their head. You want us to know what they really saw. And if you start saying stuff like, did it have great big huge ears? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And, did it have, fangs that stuck out everywhere? Yeah, yeah. You as an investigator, you need to be very careful not to lead the eyewitness, or else you could uh, taint or contaminate your own, case file, your own story. And so I was trying to be real vague, but I was like, well, tell me what you saw. And basically what he was describing was a juvenile dog man. And I thought that that was so funny that he interpreted a juvenile dog man as a chupacabra, and kind of made me reflect. And because what he was calling a chupacabra was basically, a black wolf type dog with thin hair. A lot of them don't have the bushy hair. Some of them, it's like very, like Chihuahua hair or something, I guess. I'm sure you get reports of that too, right?
Sometimes I do, but not all that often.
Okay, but he said that, this one didn't have a whole lot of hair on its body, but around its neck and everything and on top of its head, it had a lot of bushy hair, and he actually described it like a lion's mane. And but he said it was only like 3 or 4 foot tall, and it was in the middle of the road. But it scared his daughter so bad she didn't want to go fishing that day. So, but to this day, it makes you wonder and reflect on chupacabras as a whole. We don't have a lot of chupacabra reports here in Oklahoma, but when you get further south and you get down into Mexico, it makes you wonder: are they reporting juvenile dog men? Is that what they're seeing? I mean, it kind of makes you reflect. I mean, you know, unlike Bigfoot, if you see a dog man from 300 or 400 yards away, are you going to recognize that as a dog man, or are you just going to call it a dog? It's kind of, the further out you get, the harder it is to judge, how big a creature is. The only way that you would know for sure is if you saw this dog man, walking upright. So I think that a lot of people probably see these creatures, especially at a distance, and they don't really realize that it's a cryptid at all. They just think it's a domestic canine or something. But you think about it, even their prints. I mean, the young ones could leave their prints everywhere, and people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You know, I mean, who knows how many times we've walked across dogmen prints and they just appear to be regular canine prints. I mean, they're really not going to get your attention unless they're over 5 inches in diameter, right? I mean, they'd have to be bigger than that. Well, what percent of the dogman population is actually the really big ones? The ones that you hear about are mainly not that big. They're 7 foot range. When what would you say the average height for some of the reports you've taken off the top? I mean, just off the top of your head.
I'd say the average height is around 7 feet. 8 footers come in fairly often, but definitely not like the 7 footers. So I'd say the average is normally right around 7.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting too. I mean, we don't get a whole lot of these 10 footers and stuff. That you that you tell about, but I don't know. And I guess you got to ask yourself, if you've got one that stands up and it's 7 foot tall and it's coming in at 350 pounds. I mean, what size, diameter, or footprint is that beast going to leave? I mean, we really don't know. Um, Nobody does. And well, I mean, I'm not going to say nobody. There's probably people out there that have that expertise, but I'm definitely not one of them. And I think the general consensus is we just don't know. So, but there have been reports. I took a report a couple of years ago from a guy from south of Tecumseh, Oklahoma, who his neighbor had taken a picture of a 9-inch dog track. And I was like, well, is there any way you could get that for me? And he was like, well, I'll go ask. I'll see if I can get him to send it to me. And of course, I'm like on the edge of my seat, a 9-inch canine track, and he messaged me, well, he said he doesn't have it anymore, which is usually how things go. I mean, I see that as a tragedy, that somebody would lose a photo or, that kind of evidence. But at the end of the day, that's the way most people are. Most people take a picture and they think it's kind of interesting, and those pictures will just sit on their phone, and and then they drop their phone in the toilet or in the lake or something like that, and it's gone forever. And they really don't realize what they got. They don't know that maybe they should share that with investigators, and they don't have a clue. They just don't know. And then by the time you find out, it's too late. So, or maybe we were being snookered the whole time. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's possible. One thing that doesn't help is most of the general public has no idea how big a normal canid print can be. They don't realize that they'll see a 4-inch print and say, well, that's got to be a Dogman print because it's so much bigger than their dog's prints are.
Yeah.
But the biggest print that's ever been found was from, at least by on the wolf side of things, was a print that was 5 inches wide by 6 inches long. Unlike dogs, wolves have prints that are elongated. But yeah, if they found a 9-incher, that kind of cuts down on the possibilities, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there you go again. I mean, it's, people don't notice, I would argue that your average Joe might actually overlook a 6-inch canine print. Just think, oh, that's a really big dog. Um, I I don't know. I mean, I just don't. To me, it's just unfathomable that somebody could look at a print like that and not realize that you're looking at something extremely special. But a lot of people, they just don't put two and two together, or maybe they think that somebody's just messing with them or something. I mean, it's kind of hard to say what they're thinking when Dogman is not even on your radar. Then how would you know? You just don't. You don't know till it's too late, and you get rid of it. But yeah, a 5-inch dog or canine print is a very huge wolf. But anything over than that, anything under than that could be domestic too. I run across 4-inch dog prints all the time, and sometimes I wonder about them. I found 4-inch canine prints that have, like, you can kind of tell that, you know, how some of the Dogman prints are going around on the internet, how they have like a elongated foot portion at the back of them. I don't know. I've often speculated that maybe, that part of it only shows up on the Dogmen when they're walking bipedally. At least it's kind of my theory. I think that, it's possible that when they're walking quadrupedally, that it just looks like a regular canine print when they walk. But I could be wrong. And I would absolutely love for anybody to enlighten me with some evidence to the contrary. So, anyway, I can keep going. I have a 2023 encounter from an area close to Lawton, Oklahoma. This is, I'm trying to remember. I had this guy reached out to me and hit me up on Facebook Messenger, and he was a truck driver, and he wanted to remain anonymous like most people. And this guy has basically was running into him, seeing him in broad daylight out in fields when he was coming and going from his place of employment. He said he could see him running across the fields at high rates of speed, and he was shocked at how fast these things were. And he said that they were black, and he said that there was just nothing out there. There was mesquite trees, and they've got little mesas and buttes and all kinds of different stuff. And he did mention that he was working at a landfill, which I thought was interesting because I've always found landfills to be a possible hot spot, because it is a huge food resource for animals. I've noticed that if you go out and you look around landfills and surrounding areas, there's a lot of animal traffic, like coyotes and stuff, coming through, and they're usually coming back and forth from the landfill area. As a matter of fact, I've had some people give me, Sasquatch reports from landfills too. Um, so I think that both Sasquatch and Dogman could probably get a lot of nutrition from a landfill, and possibly even, as long as there's a clean water source, they might not have to actually leave the area. They could probably stay there year round and just go in the middle of the night. I would love to find somebody that actually worked at a landfill that was frequented by these things, and maybe if they had like security cameras and stuff, I would be willing to bet you that we've got video footage of these things on film going into some of these landfills, but just nobody knows to look. It's like most security footage. Nobody ever looks at it unless something comes up missing or stolen or damaged. And unless that happens, nobody's going to look at it. Who's to say how many different Bigfoots and even Dogmen that we have on film, and we have no idea that it's there because nobody takes the time to review it. I don't know. But I did think that this was kind of unusual. He said that he would see them running quadrupedally and bipedally both. So 2 different times he saw them. It's kind of an interesting story. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is the one of the picture that I sent you. Okay. And because I was curious if you had ever seen that picture, because that I have seen that picture, I've seen it on the internet before, and every time I've seen it, um, it has been one of those situations where people don't know where the picture came from. And the story that I got was that sometime after 2003, and I am current. This is one of my case files that I am currently looking for more information on. It's case file number 288. It's called "Treasure Hunter Gets Followed by Dogman in the Wichita Mountains." And the way I understand it is this guy. And for those of you that don't know, the Wichita Mountains have long rumored to have, stashes of gold and stuff from clear back in the day. Uh, with the Spanish and stuff, and then there's stories of cowboy loot being hidden over there in the Wichita Mountains. And if you've ever been out there, you know that you could stash a body somewhere in the rocks over there and nobody'd ever find it. I mean, it's like a big maze out there. But there's been all these rumors about treasure and everything else. And so there's people that go out there and they kind of wander around, they look for treasure. Well, this guy was one of them, and he was out there and he was way in the back. And I'm not exactly sure, but I kind of got the impression that he was, well, I guess I probably shouldn't say exactly what location he was at. But anyway, he was looking for treasure, and he was looking through some rock formations and stuff for some caves or some mines. Let's just put it that way. And he suddenly noticed that something was following him, that there was some kind of creature in the brush, and it was making little noises, and it wasn't being very discreet, breaking branches and stuff like that. Well, this guy didn't know anything about Dogman. He had no idea. But he had watched Finding Bigfoot, right? And so he basically had an idea that this could be a Sasquatch or something. So he gets on the phone as he's hiking out, and he calls this guy because he knows this guy that's a Bigfoot person. I don't know who this person was. I wish I did. But he calls this person on the phone, and the guy goes, "Well, yeah, that kind of sounds like Bigfoot behavior." He goes, "Well, why don't you hang up the phone and take a picture? Start filming." And so the guy's like, "That's a good idea." So he hangs up the phone with his friend, and he basically starts taking pictures of this thing that's behind him. And that picture that I sent you was the only one that actually showed anything. And as you can see from the picture, it's got very tall, prominent, Anubis looking canine ears. And you can kind of see it's kind of got sloping shoulders. Uh, I don't know. It just oozes Anubis to me. I don't know about you. Now, it's not the best picture. You can't see any eyes or any face definition, but you can definitely get the opinion that it is something canine from a distance. And supposedly this guy got in his truck and was driving away, and I guess he sent that picture to his Bigfoot buddy, and his Bigfoot buddy was like, "Whoa, that's beyond my pay grade." He said, "I think what you got there is a dog man." And of course, the Bigfoot guy didn't know what to do with it, and it just kind of fizzled from there. I would love to talk to this guy. If you want to see the picture, it's well, I mean, if you want to post it in the notes or something, you're more than welcome to. But if not, you can go to my case files and you can find 288, and the photo is actually listed there on the case file. So, um, straight
Hey,
out
not to
South Carolina.
interrupt you there, Brian, but if you can send me a link to that to take people directly to that case file on your site, then I'll post that in the description for tonight's show.
Okay. Well, and I'll warn you that some people, it'll just depending on what kind of device you're using, it'll just let you see them all, and you don't have to do anything. Some people actually have to go in and create an account with it's called Airtable. It's kind of like it's a spreadsheet type thing, kind of like Excel, but this one's free, and I'm a teacher, so it's in my pay range. But yeah, we store everything in there. So you might actually have to create an account, give them your email address, and create a password or whatever. It's super easy. But once you do that, it'll let you in and stuff. There is a link to all my case files um, on the Facebook page under the featured section. But yeah, I'll send you. I'll try to send you a link to that so you can to that specific case file, so that anybody that's specifically curious. It is an interesting photo, although it's like most cryptid photos. It leaves a lot to be desired, doesn't it?
It does, but it's a photo. They got a photo of something.
Yeah, and it wasn't what he thought he had. So anyway, it kind of cracks me up. But yes, I would love to have more information on that. So case file number 358, another white dog man. I had a young lady reach out to me. Her name is Amanda. And when she was young, down in Seminole County, which is kind of south central Oklahoma, back in the winter of 1998, her and her friend and their mothers had an encounter, and basically the girls were inside a house, and they basically the mother saw this, what she described as a white or a light gray colored werewolf standing outside their house looking through the window. And there was multiple people in the house that saw it. I think both adult women saw it, and the two girls both saw it. And the weirdest part about it is they think it had been in the area for a while, because the two girls had actually had an encounter with something that they couldn't see earlier that day out in the woods. I guess they were out playing in the woods. So, but anyway, that's case file number 358, and I guess this thing was standing up bipedally, and it was looking at them. And of course, I'm sure that there was, at that point, there was pandemonium that came out in there, and of course, that was in 1999, and poor Amanda, she was 15 years old at the time, but she remembers it very, very well. And I can't help but wonder if she did she ever want to go spend the night with that girl again. I don't know, but she's very genuine, very real, kind of a country girl, down to earth, very what's the word, sincere, but I would say uncomplicated. She just seemed like a normal, good old country girl. And again, this is another one of those situations where it's like people are like, I need to reach out and tell this guy, and so he can document this stuff, because somebody's got to know about this stuff. Somebody's got to find out. Somebody needs to do something. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do anything about this, but maybe eventually, if we get enough case files and we get enough data, we might be able to do something crazy like pattern them, or predict them, or something like that. I mean, um, there's so many, and there's so many that are recently. I remember, wasn't too terribly long ago, and you put me in touch with that young man that was a medical lab assistant who got chased down the highway by that Dogman in Oklahoma. You remember that?
I don't remember that. No.
Oh, it was one of yours. His name was Matt. He was from Cushing, and it was episode 473. I've got it right here in my notes. But I actually reached out to you, and you put me in contact with him because he had no interest in being anonymous, and so I spent some time talking to him on the phone, and he was very sincere. The funny thing is he struck me as the type of guy who he never had a clue that dogmen were a thing until this happened to him. And I was shocked at how little he knew about dogmen. I mean, he wasn't well versed in it. He didn't know, but you know, some of the things that he was describing really aligned with what it was, and he was just very, I don't know, he was curious. He was like, what was that? He just, I don't know. It was very, he struck me as a very sincere young man, you know, and I was impressed with his story. And, of course it kind of messed with my head a little bit, because I used to drive that same road back when I was going to college. So I mean, it's just, there's so many of them recently, um,
Yeah, it
I,
really does bring it close to home when you find out that here you're driving a road where an actual encounter happened. It
yeah,
does make the hackles stand up. Brian, I'll tell you what, we're an hour and 15 in. So
I was
time
wondering,
flies. It
I was
flies.
wondering
I
how
hate
long
that.
you were going to let me go.
I hate the idea of bringing this to an end. You're doing such an amazing job. Would you be open to coming back? Because the people in the chat, they can't get enough of you. I'm sure the listeners can't get enough of you.
They
And
obviously don't know me well.
I'm just blown away by the job you've been doing. I really
Oh,
am.
I'm behind. If I was to sit down, if I had time to sit down all weekend, I could probably plug in 20 more case files. Of course, not all of them are Dogmen, but there's a. I'm just one guy that's trying to put the information out there. I mean, it's everywhere. It's just go to some of these local. Just go to your local, cryptid, Facebook pages and just go to the search bar and type in Dogman. I mean, it'll pull up every time somebody says Dogman in that Facebook page for the last 5 years. It'll blow your mind. They're everywhere. I literally do not have enough time. I wish I had money. I would hire staff. I mean, it's literally at that point. It's a good thing I'm a teacher and I have a lot of debt, a lot of time off. So anyway, yeah, I'd be more than happy to come back. I can tell I've got a lot more case. I mean, I've got 78 case files. You know, that's just Dogmen. So
Well, yeah, that's a lot. But then again, you've been doing this for a while and people know about you. So no wonder you have 78.
yeah, the sad part is I'm always thinking about all the ones that I'm not getting or the ones that I missed, and I think everybody's story needs to be heard. I mean, we've got some of the oldest Dogman reports around. You know, um, there was reports in the 1600s by Comancheros that came to western Oklahoma, and they were reporting seeing what they called lobosomes out there. They were writing about them in their journals. I don't know. You know how it is.
I do. I know all too well. Well, I'd be remiss, Brian, if I didn't ask you to promote your documentaries, promote your YouTube channel, and also to please promote Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations again before we go. So please take your time.
Well, we have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel kind of started out as just a place for me to document my evidence that I was gathering and stuff, videos and stuff like that. And it just kind of started morphing into something, and people started subscribing, and so now it's kind of like the adventures of the Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations. We do interviews, and sometimes we take you along for expeditions. We're currently working on a documentary, and this one is actually a Sasquatch documentary that we're going to be done filming by the time summer rolls around. We've got one more place that we're going to go, and then we're gonna shut it down, and we're just gonna put that documentary out. This fall, we're going to start working on a Dogman documentary, and we're looking forward to that. So, and we can definitely, if you guys have any information, or Dogman evidence or something, we'd love to take a look at it. And you can help us out with that because, as you guys know, finding Dogman evidence is very, very hard. It's easy to stumble on Bigfoot evidence, but Dogman evidence is a lot more elusive, you know. But that's us. We're our primary place. I mean, we're everywhere. We're on TikTok and Instagram and X and stuff like that. But YouTube is still kind of our home. So, if you need to reach out to me, you can always go hit me up on Facebook Messenger and send me a message, or you can hit us up on the email at reddirtcryptids@gmail.com.
Well, that makes it really easy. Brian, like I told you before several times, you're one of the good ones. And of course, I wish nothing but the best for you. Please remember, with that in mind, if I can ever help you in the future, let me know. I'll be there for you.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Oh, it goes two ways. It really does. Thanks again so much for your time, like I said, and hope you have a great night.
You too. Have a good one, folks.
I'll count on it. Thank you. Well, that's another one in the books, everyone. Thanks again so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. If you've had a Dogman encounter that you need help dealing with, or if you'd like to come on the show and share it with everyone listening, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you do that, then I'll contact you and schedule a phone consultation with you. If you've happened to have a Sasquatch sighting and would like to come on one of my 2 Bigfoot podcasts, all you would need to do is to go to mybigfootsighting.com and submit a guest request. And if you do that, then I'll be in touch. But having said that, thanks again so much, everyone, for listening, and have a great night. I really appreciate it.